Hopefully, I want to take back as many stories, if not more, from all of you guys. So I expect it to be as interactive as possible. Feel free to throw in with your ideas anytime. And before I dive into the stories, I'll just give you a brief about how we ended up doing what we are doing today. So 3.5, 4 years back when we were in college, we started primarily from the area of behavior research and neuropsychology. And we wanted to understand how human beings make their choices, right from everyday choices to more critical life and death choices. What are the mechanisms that are playing in the human brain? How people analyze things? What does neuroscience say? What does game theory say? What does behavioral economics say? So from that angle, and we wanted to model a person's thinking and use that to stimulate how that person would behave in a whole range of situations. Now, when we started trying to capture data from person, most methods that were available were psychometric questionnaires, which have a lot of problems in using how accurate they are in actually getting the right information from people. So that's when we started looking at games and activities, and we figured out that many of the clinical activities that doctors do are actually some sort of serious games and activities which they ask the patients to engage in. So we started converting them into computer-based activities and games and use that to profile people, and we had significantly higher accuracies than what models which use psychometric questionnaires had. So that was how we entered into this field. And today when I say that we do gamification, we do game-based learning, often when I meet people from this field, I feel that we come from a very different standpoint in terms of we don't start with the game mechanics saying points, badges, leaderboards, and this is how it needs to be used. We come from the perspective of what are the different cognitive bias, what are the different behavioral bias that affect us in our everyday life, not just in the game. And how can that be used to promote good behavior or negate bad behavior inside a virtual environment? It can be a game, or it can be a simulation, or it can just be the user experience of your application. So that's the context with which we approach the education field. And we started with different games and activities for cognitive profiling. How is a person's working memory, associative memory, logic, problem solving, so on and so forth. And the interesting results came up. I'll come to that later on. But what we realized that as teachers started asking us, kids love these games, can you create something related to academic concepts? So we started creating those, and then teachers came back to us and said, we want more of this. You're only covering probably 3% of curriculum topics like Siddharth was talking about. We want more. And there's only so much resources that you have to build more and more games. So very soon we realized that we need a different way in which we need to enable teachers to build their own games as opposed to game developers coming and building it. So we started playing around with things like how can you do text to animation or text to game. So someone actually comes and writes a simple story saying Tom says hi and takes out his gun and shoots, and Jack says ow and dies. And it actually analyzes simple English text and converts it into an animation, or similarly a game, and so on and so forth. We started playing around with these ideas. And when we went to classrooms and teachers started implementing, that's when we realized the most important challenge in implementing any innovation in a classroom, not just game-based learning, which is the success or the metric that you want to measure depends to great extent on how the teachers use your tools and how they actually create the right atmosphere in classroom to make learning happen than just providing tools. Which is why even in US, there's a Columbia University study which talks about the popular digital classrooms, right? Just put whiteboard, content comes there, teacher goes play the video, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of challenges even in that mode because often the teacher is also a witness. Some video is playing on the screen, everyone's sitting and watching. Without the right pedagogical constructs and intervention, the success, how it translates into whether students are learning or not, is low. So we started addressing from that angle, and that's when we realized that we need to work on a platform which empowers teachers, and I'd like to share a few stories in that context today. So early on when we started introducing these games and simulations in the schools, we wanted to put it inside an environment where the teacher, without asking anybody's help, can figure out which game to use when, what does it mean, and what is the right way to implement it in the classroom. For instance, when we went and gave the games first, like we were talking about, we didn't want students to play the game one-on-one. We wanted collaborative games where the teachers and the students are actually equally participating in the game. So we said, let's say a simple math game like what was being discussed in the morning. How can you form teams in the classroom, team of 4 or 5, and make kids play as a team so that if one or two people in the team are weak in mathematics, there's incentive for other kids to actually train the other two kids themselves so that their team as a whole improves their score, improves their performance. So these collaborative skills, teamwork, automatically becomes a part of how you use games in a classroom. So from a lot of aspects, and I don't know if you managed to see it, but there were certain halos which were floating around any performance bar that you saw. So the halo was something called self-efficacy. Anybody from education research background here? Okay, so basically what it means is when you're asked to study a new topic, how much motivation, willingness does a person have to go beyond what they already know and attempt something that they currently don't know. So if that becomes low in a class, the halo for that child starts glowing red, which means the teacher knows, okay, now we need to give some individual attention to this particular child, or maybe the parents can intervene, so on and so forth. So we started embedding such visual indicators in the environment that the teacher uses, which is why we didn't want a standard elements looking platform on which you put your games and simulations. And we implemented it in a few schools across India. And after a few months, we had a feedback session where we asked them, what did you like about the platform? And we had used a lot of analytics, adaptive testing. None of it came up. We had extensive reports. None of it came up. Most teachers mentioned only one aspect. Students were very hard to, it was very hard for me to catch their attention. Now the student engagement, participation in classroom has automatically gone up. And the most often used phrase was, they love my classes. So we had a very similar experience with our corporate tool before. So we knew that the user experience was bringing out or catering to a need which is often not addressed by tools, which is people want to do things, whatever their job professions are, in a way that makes others love what they're doing, admire what they're doing. Often when people design software or tools, they look at what is the utility, is the utility served. That's just step one. Can you make people perform the same action in a way that makes all stakeholders like what they're doing? So that was something that we were unintentionally addressing. And that is where the gamification bit came in, because we realized that, again, when we said gamification, it's not about points, badges, or leaderboard. It's about how can you use simple things like visual indicators, temporal changes, like on farm mill, right? You go and you don't water a plant for XYZ hours, within 8 hours, the plant dies. It's not about points or games, it's about how can the repetitive action be inspired, motivated. So that's how we took the approach into gamification. And now we're building a platform called Guruji. Interestingly, also reads Guruji if you read it backward. It's a gamified platform for 3 stuff: teaching, teacher training, and open certification. Now I'll tell you why we narrowed down on these 3 through a set of stories.
Could you lay back your slides?
Sure.
It's last slide.
Or that moving stuff? I'm trying to make it stop. Can the lights be manipulated?
Well, exposed. Let's see.
And I think we'll revisit that, or we'll go into the actual game section. So the first story is primarily about teachers. Now I think Siddharth was also talking about it in the morning. What we learned early on is teachers actually have much deeper idea of what practically works in a classroom than game designers or game developers who haven't had classroom experience. So early on we started with around 30 odd games, and very soon we expanded to 80 games, and most of it, the ideas actually came from teachers. So we knew that if there's some way you can empower teachers to build these applications themselves, they're going to do a good job at it. So that was the first insight that we got. The second, like I shared, was admiration. How can you let them do their task in a way that gets them appreciation of others? Because in most countries, teachers are actually an underpaid profession. So the kind of social incentives that you can give them matter a lot. In India, in the ancient Gurukul system, teacher never got paid upfront. But whenever a teacher used to go and ask anything from anybody in the society, they used to give it, because knowledge itself was a currency, just like money. Today we have money as a common currency. So how else can we build that incentive model into teaching? Was the second aspect that we looked at. The third, which is the most important, is we realized that how you learn something matters more than what you learn. Because there's a popular video you have to look up if you haven't, called 5-Minute University. It's by a stand-up comedian. Has anybody seen it? So he says everything that an average undergrad student remembers 5 years after graduating can be taught in 5 minutes. So for instance, business, buy something for less, sell for more. That's all someone remembers. Spanish, como está, muy bien, gracias. Whatever, he has a 5-minute university concept. Now if you look at it, the reason we go through so many stuff in our academics is not necessarily because you want to remember calculus, but engaging in those activities develop certain skills, analytical thinking, which transforms the way we look at the world and how we apply it in other areas. We may have forgotten calculus or probability, but it changes how we apply our skills, abilities. Which means how someone learns is more important than what we learn. And in most schools, because of scalability reasons, if you look at different countries, I was told that in Singapore it's much better. But often teacher comes, opens the textbook, reads from the textbook, goes out. Which means the focus is on content delivery, not on the methods. And even in developed countries, I spent a good amount of time in education research labs in North America, and we found that the education research has a lot more innovations happening in pedagogy, which are not translating into classroom experience. The main reason being, teachers do not have the time to prepare ahead of class. So we asked ourselves, how can we achieve it in a way that even if a teacher does not have time or motivation to prepare ahead of class, how can we ensure that they follow the right pedagogical tools, pedagogical constructs when teaching, which was the third key aspect. I mean, at any point somebody disagrees, or if you have a different line of thinking, these two share. The fourth aspect is democratization. I think of late it's an overused term, but most often what people say when we say democratize education is democratize access to education. Everybody should have access to education. But at a fundamental level, you need to start at democratizing creation. How can you ensure that everybody, parent, or teacher, or a student, can create their own educational tools and resources? So that is the level at which we need to enable democratization. And there have been early attempts around the world, and as more and more people, more and more education companies start focusing on that, I think we're going to have a lot more livelier scene in the education landscape. So I'll give you an interesting anecdote here. So in a school in Karnataka, which is one of the states in India, we did an assessment of behavioral and cognitive abilities, and memory, attention, logic, problem solving. And when you do the analysis and you visualize the data, there will be some outliers, which is most students are here somewhere on the curve, and some of them are either too high or too low, which usually means two things. It means your assessment tool is wrong somewhere, which means you need to go and look into it, or there's something remarkable about these outliers and therefore it's justified. So we initially thought it was one of our early attempts, so we thought maybe something's missed out, some game didn't work for them or didn't open for them, some reason. But as soon as it came on screen, the teachers immediately remarked, even before we could comment, saying, I knew this kid was bright, but he somehow scores low in all subjects except mathematics. So the teachers knew he was bright, teachers knew that he would probably score high on all the cognitive abilities that we were looking at. Then we found out that this guy had come from North India, from an Hindi medium school 3 months back to this new school in Karnataka, and we looked at his performance on games from maths and science and vocabulary. So his score on vocabulary was very low in English. So then the teachers themselves started brainstorming, saying, oh, he's probably not understanding what we're teaching in his class because of language issue. So he's actually a bright kid, which is why he's doing well in maths, but in other subjects he's not getting it right. So this is an insight which teachers knew by gut feeling, but only when you present the right analytics and right resources, they can act upon it more easily. Otherwise, good teachers, great teachers spot it, act upon it immediately, but it takes time for someone to get that expertise, right? So how can you enable a teacher on day one to personalize how they teach in the classroom? So this was another challenge that we looked at. So when we built the application, right? So it's currently a application that we built. By the end of year, we'd have it on Android, Windows, and web version as well. So the basic concept is, suppose I'm teaching today, class suddenly becomes unruly, or I know that some student is extremely demotivated. Can I just pull out a slider and say demotivated, and the appropriate methods to teach in a class when they are demotivated get highlighted? So I can choose from different techniques to use in a classroom and deliver my classroom experience in real time, even if I haven't prepared, since it's available to me on a tablet, not projected on a direct digital class board, which allows them to personalize how they teach in a classroom in a direct way right from day one. And as in when they start using it, they themselves figure out the patterns which you have included in your application, saying every time the class is probably lazy or bored, this tool is recommending me to use more activities, group discussions, games. So probably there's a reason behind it. So they learn the actual concepts, research concepts behind it, pedagogies behind it by practice, so which is basically on-the-job training. And we wanted to test if it actually works in the most technology unfriendly environments. So there's a tiger reserve forest area called Mudumalai in the intersection of 3 states in India. So we went with a couple of foundations we work with, which works with 15 tribal schools, and went with the tablet and said, can we actually get them to use it and appreciate it and use it right from day one? So we did a training session. Few teachers were late for the session, so it actually took us 5-6 minutes to explain how to use the application, and then we got each teacher to actually use it, and if they had any doubts, clarifying it, and so on and so forth. So a couple of teachers came late, and we were interacting with other teachers, so we said, give us 5-10 minutes, we'll come and demo it to you. So one of the teachers actually stood up and said, if you're busy, can I demo it to them? We said, okay, fine. And she took a tablet. She went and she explained it in Tamil. I don't understand Tamil, so I don't know what she explained. It took her probably a minute or less than a minute to explain. And then the new teachers who had walked in, they used it themselves, completed the entire cycle, earned some rewards for having completed a topic, and they looked at us, smiled, and said, I can use this in my classroom by myself. And that was something amazing for us, because often we talk about when a new technology is used in a classroom, how it takes weeks of training for them to get used to it, to understand it. And here we were able to demonstrate that training something can be extremely simple and easy if the platform is built the right way. And it's very important, especially in a country like India, where the scale is huge. We have 250 million kids in the school-going age, and I think a teacher shortage of a couple of million teacher shortage, which means we need so many more new teachers. In addition to that, existing teachers, there are various studies which give several high numbers ranging from 70% to 90% as to the percentage of teachers who need to be reskilled with newer skills, newer awareness. So how can we achieve that at this large scale if we don't enable people to train each other and the model to grow in a more viral way? So the train the trainer concept becomes something that needs to be embedded when designing your solution itself. So the next aspect that we consider was certification. Again, when we interacted with teachers across the country, many of the teachers in private schools as well as in government schools said the thing that they liked the most about their job, especially in the government schools that we went and spoke to, is it provides them job security and a decent pay. And the third aspect was how interesting their classroom experience could be. And this actually is a common thing across in terms of when you ask them to learn new skills, if it doesn't translate into tangible benefits for them, it's tough for them to sustain that. So when we say, ask teachers, learn new skills, the questions that they ask is, okay, fine, I'll learn new skills, but is there also a tangible benefit? Students interacting more itself is a good thing. But can you also have a system which provides more tangible benefit? I was told, again, Singapore already has structures where, based on teacher performance, the pay scales, for instance, the incentives are already adjusted. In India, currently we do not have, but there are other models which we are working on where they get micro certificates or micro badges based on how much skills they have attained, how many new pedagogies they have actually used in a classroom. So every teacher starts from Guruji level 1, so and goes up to level 9, after which is the level G. So that's the final level. And after level 4, to go from 4 to 5, 5 to 6, etc., they actually go through a small standardized assessment which assesses how much they have learned, in addition with actually monitoring what they are teaching in the classroom to award micro certificates to the teachers, which actually have a meaning beyond the application. So if someone puts up on their resume saying, I'm Guruji level 6, it actually has meaning in the professional context as well. So that's the approach which we are taking. It's okay, I will probably. So the last aspect that I wanted to highlight was in terms of unifying education. We had not thought about this much. Incidentally, it so happened that a month back, we got selected as one of the 11 companies around the world to basically go around a cruise ship to 14 countries with Desmond Tutu, Tom Chi, WordPress founder, and so many other amazing guys, and build international partnerships, take your ideas global. And that's when we started interacting with people from different geographies. And we realized that while what needs to be taught is something that's highly local, it needs to be in local language, also contextualized to what the needs of the local society. The methods of how something needs to be taught, what abilities needs to be inculcated are common across the world. So if we can ensure that there's a platform that enables teachers to use the right pedagogies, right methods of teaching around the world, that will act as a unification factor for students emerging from any education system. So you might not have learned, let's say, history of India if you are from a different country, but you would have probably picked up the same abilities, thinking abilities that a child picked up by studying history of his or her country. So how can we create a uniform platform which can monitor both student as well as teacher growth and development was the next key aspect that we were considering. So those were the key 8 insights that got us thinking and working on Guruji. Guruji is basically a gamified platform for teachers. Wanted to show you some snippets of it, but it's on? Anyway, so the basic concept is, how many of you have played some educational game for which is built for students? How many of you have heard of them? How many of you have some favorites? Most of you, right? So how many of you have heard of any gamified platform or gamification method or games for teachers? Why? At the end of the day, it's not just students who are reluctant to learn new stuff, right? As human beings, all of us are, no matter what profession we are in. But we assume that just because someone is a teacher, they'll learn the skills even if you teach to them in a boring way. But we need to make things as interesting as possible to kids, which is actually the dogma that we're trying to break. In all our experiences, we found that at the end of the day, parents ask, like someone was telling, success is a metric for parents. I invested in game-based learning, digital classrooms, but has my child's performance improved? If not, why am I investing? Now that improvement, the success translation comes only if the teacher is also empowered, which currently has been so far bypassed. The teacher has been bypassed in most initiatives, not just in India, but across the world. Partly also because of the economics of the business. The people who pay are either the parents or the institution or the government. But I think there's a growing awareness now about the need to empower teachers, and we want to work together with people to ensure that teachers are empowered in a larger way through interesting, fun ways as well. So that was the core intention behind Guruji.